The American middle class is dying, not suddenly, but silently. Once the heartbeat of this nation, it now gasps for air under crushing debt, impossible rent, and a system designed to break the very people who built it. Families work harder than ever and have less than ever. Dreams of homeownership, savings, health, and rest have become fantasies. Every bill, every grocery run, every hospital visit bleeds hope dry. This isn't misfortune. It's by design. The middle class isn't living the American dream anymore. It's surviving the American illusion. Number 10. Housing. Owning a home was once the proud symbol of the American middle class. A white picket fence, a yard for the kids, and a key to stability. Today, that dream is gone. Completely gone. In the 1970s, a typical home cost about 3 times the average annual income. If you earned $12,000 a year, you could buy a decent house for $36,000. Fast forward to today, and that same ratio has exploded to 10 times income. The median U.S. home price now tops $420,000, while the median household income sits at $74,580. That math doesn't add up. The American middle class has been priced out of its own neighborhoods. In 1991, the average first-time homebuyer was 28 years old. Today, 38. That's a full decade lost. A decade of saving, building equity, and starting families. Every year, more Americans realize they may never own a home. They're stuck renting from corporate landlords who own thousands of single-family houses, turning what used to be homes into profit machines. BlackRock, Invitation Homes, and other institutional investors are quietly buying entire neighborhoods, sometimes paying cash, outbidding working families, and jacking up rents overnight. Even renting isn't a refuge anymore. The average rent for a one-bedroom apartment in many U.S. cities now exceeds $2,000 per month. Families are forced to sign leases that eat 40 to 50% of their take-home pay, leaving them one car repair or medical bill away from eviction. And for those still trying to buy? Mortgage rates over 7%, plus skyrocketing insurance and property taxes, make even modest homes impossible. A 30-year mortgage at today's rates means paying $900,000 over time for a $400,000 to $50,000 home. The American dream has turned into an American illusion, a cruel mirage shimmering just out of reach. The home that once symbolized security has become a symbol of loss, inequality, and generational despair. Number 9. Food crisis. There was a time when a middle-class family could walk into a grocery store, fill up a cart, and still have money left for the weekend. Today, that simple act feels like luxury shopping. America, the richest nation on earth, is now watching its middle class struggle to afford food. Since 2019, grocery prices have surged over 25%, with essentials like eggs up 70%, milk 30%, and meat and poultry 40%. The average U.S. household now spends $976 per month on groceries, compared to $650 just a few years ago. That's nearly $12,000 a year, for food that used to cost half as much. The grocery store aisles have become battlegrounds of inflation. A gallon of milk that was once $2.50 now costs $4.50. A carton of eggs that cost $1.39 now sells for $4.99. Families are switching to cheaper, ultra-processed options just to fill their kids' plates. It's not just about hunger anymore. It's about health. Obesity and diabetes rates soar while nutrition falls, because the only food most people can afford is junk. Fast food chains, once the affordable fallback, now charge $12 to $15 per meal. A simple McDonald's combo, the symbol of cheap American convenience, costs nearly as much as a sit-down restaurant meal did a decade ago. A family of 4 grabbing burgers and fries can easily drop $60 to $70. Meanwhile, corporations report record profits. Food giants like Tyson, PepsiCo, and Kroger have quietly raised prices far beyond their costs, using inflation as cover to fatten margins. The U.S. Department of Agriculture reports that food insecurity affects 17 million households, the highest since the Great Recession. This isn't just an economic problem, it's a moral one. When teachers, nurses, and construction workers can't afford dinner, something is deeply broken. Families are cutting meals, skipping fresh produce, and feeding their children on credit cards. The American dinner table, once the heart of the home, is now a place of quiet panic. The middle class isn't just losing wealth, it's losing the ability to eat. Number 8. A dependable car. For decades, the American car was more than transportation. It was independence, freedom, a symbol of the middle class, the open road, the weekend getaway, the daily commute to a stable job. But in 2025, that freedom has a price tag that most Americans simply can't afford anymore. The average new car payment has hit $748 a month, while the average used car payment is $555. That's nearly $9,000 a year, just to drive to work. In some states, car insurance premiums jumped 25 to 30% in a single year. Add $4 a gallon gas, maintenance, and taxes, and a dependable car easily costs $12,000 to $14,000 annually, more than many families pay for rent in smaller towns. Interest rates have crushed buyers. The average used car loan now exceeds 10% APR, with loan terms stretching up to 84 months. 7 years of debt for a car that begins losing value the moment you start it. Millions of Americans are now upside down, owing more on their vehicles than they're worth. Car loan delinquencies have spiked to their highest level since 2006, the same warning sign that preceded the financial crash. Once, every middle-class household had 2 cars in the driveway. Today, families are selling one just to survive. Many rely on a single aging vehicle, praying it doesn't break down because one repair could wipe out their savings. A simple transmission failure, $3,000. New tires, $1,200. Even an oil change has doubled in price. The automotive industry, meanwhile, boasts record profits. Dealerships tack on market adjustments, charging thousands above sticker price. Electric vehicles, once touted as the future, are out of reach, with average prices hovering near $60,000. The car that once symbolized freedom has become a financial prison. Americans now work to afford the thing that gets them to work. Every mile driven is another reminder that the middle class is stalling out, trapped in debt, crushed by costs, and running on fumes. The open road isn't open anymore. It's gated by price tags and payment plans. Number 7. Higher education without massive debt. College was supposed to be the great equalizer, the bridge from middle-class roots to a better life. Instead, it's become a financial trapdoor that swallows generations whole. In America today, getting a degree doesn't open doors. It locks you in chains of debt that can last a lifetime. The numbers are staggering. The average cost of a 4-year degree, including tuition, housing, and fees, has soared to $104,108 at public universities and over $223,000 at private ones. Since the 1980s, tuition has increased 1,200%, while wages for college graduates have barely moved. Student debt has now ballooned past $1.77 trillion, affecting more than 43 million Americans. A typical graduate leaves school with $37,338 in student loans. For many, that means paying $400 to $600 every month for decades. Even those who do everything right, studying hard, landing jobs, climbing the corporate ladder, find themselves trapped by interest rates that never seem to shrink the balance. Student loan forgiveness programs promise relief but deliver little. Meanwhile, colleges continue raising prices faster than inflation, padding administrative salaries while classrooms crumble. Parents are taking out Parent Plus loans to help their children, digging themselves into debt well into their 60s. Millennials and Gen Z delay marriage, home ownership, and even having kids, not because they don't want to, but because they can't afford to start life under the crushing weight of loans. And for what? A degree that often leads to jobs paying $45,000 to $55,000. Barely enough to cover rent, insurance, and those monthly payments. The promise of higher education has been hijacked by a system that profits from desperation. The cruelest irony? In the world's richest nation, knowledge is no longer a right. It's a luxury. The American university, once a beacon of opportunity, now stands as a monument to inequality. A diploma used to symbolize freedom. Now it's a receipt for financial bondage. Number 6. Entertainment collapse. Entertainment used to be the soul of American life. A ball game, a concert, a night at the movies. Today, it's become a luxury reserved for the privileged. The very things that once brought people together now remind millions that joy has a price tag they can't afford. A single movie ticket can cost $18, popcorn another $10, and a drink $7. A family of 4 spends $70 to $80 just to sit in silence for 2 hours. Concert tickets? Outrageous. The average resale price for major artists has crossed $300, while top acts like Taylor Swift or Bad Bunny can exceed $1,000 to $2,000 per seat. Live music, once the heartbeat of youth, has been hijacked by bots, corporations, and dynamic pricing that bleeds fans dry. Even sports, the working man's pastime, are disappearing from reach. An average NFL ticket now costs $279, NBA $105, MLB $95. That's before parking, food, or drinks. Families who once bonded in the bleachers now watch from their couches, if they can even afford the streaming services that replaced cable. Speaking of streaming, it was supposed to save us. Instead, it's become another trap. Subscriptions that once cost $9.99 now cost $19.99, and you need half a dozen just to watch what you want. The average household now spends $243 per month on digital entertainment, nearly $3,000 a year, more than double what it was in 2018. The middle class isn't choosing between luxuries anymore. They're choosing between living and feeling alive. Art, laughter, music, and escape have been commodified beyond reach. When even joy has become unaffordable, a society loses its spirit. America isn't suffering from a lack of entertainment. It's suffering from an epidemic of exhaustion, priced out of its own happiness. Number 5. Quality, childcare or preschool. The American middle class is collapsing under the weight of childcare. Parents used to work to give their children a better life. Now, they work just to afford someone to watch them while they work. The average cost of full-time childcare in America is $13,655 per child per year. For infants, it often exceeds $20,000 in major cities. 2 working parents can easily pay $35,000 to $40,000 annually, more than college tuition in many states. Daycare rates have risen 400% in 3 decades, outpacing wage growth by nearly 5 times. For many families, that means one parent, usually the mother, leaves the workforce entirely. But staying home isn't a choice, it's an act of financial triage. The loss of income, combined with the soaring costs of everything else, traps families in a no-win situation. Work and go broke, or stay home and fall behind. Childcare now consumes 16% of median family income, even though the government defines 7% as affordable. Meanwhile, the United States is the only developed nation without universal early childhood education or federally subsidized care. In France, families pay the equivalent of $200 a month for preschool. In Sweden, it's practically free. Here, it's the cost of a mortgage. The ripple effects are devastating. Parents delay having children, fertility rates plummet, and economic growth slows. A generation of exhausted mothers and fathers spend sleepless nights wondering how to afford the next tuition payment, the next month of daycare, the next year of survival. We call children the future, yet we've priced their care like a luxury. America isn't childless by choice. It's childless by design. Number 4. Urban rent. In cities across America, the middle class is vanishing, not by choice but by eviction. The same neighborhoods that built opportunity are now unaffordable fortresses controlled by landlords, developers, and corporate investors. The median rent in the U.S. has hit $2,050, the highest in history. In cities like Austin, Miami, and Nashville, one-bedroom apartments run $2,400 to $3,200. In Los Angeles or New York, it's over $3,800. And that's before utilities, parking, and fees. Signing a lease can require $8,000 to $12,000 upfront in deposits and moving costs, more than many Americans have saved in a year. More than 50% of renters now spend over 30% of their income on housing. the federal threshold for being cost-burdened. 1 in 4 spends half their paycheck just to stay housed. Meanwhile, corporate landlords like Invitation Homes and American Homes for rent by entire neighborhoods, raising rents by 20 to 40% in a single year. The result is a quiet form of modern feudalism. Tenants work, pay, and struggle, while ownership consolidates upward. Commuters now drive 2 hours each way from the only places they can afford, losing time, health, and sanity. Families are splitting apart, moving in with relatives or doubling up in apartments meant for one. Cities are turning into luxury showrooms for the rich and transient playgrounds for investors. Teachers, nurses, and firefighters can't afford to live in the communities they serve. The middle class isn't just priced out, it's being erased. The American city was once the engine of opportunity. Today, it's a gated economy where the rent never stops rising, and the dream of stability fades with every renewal notice. Number 3. Family vacations. For generations, the family vacation was the reward for hard work. The 1 week a year when the middle class could rest, reconnect, and breathe. But that simple joy has quietly vanished. Today, for millions of Americans, the idea of taking a break feels like fantasy. A family of 4 taking a modest domestic trip, airfare, hotel, car rental, food, and attractions now costs $4,800 to $6,200 on average. A week at Disney World? Nearly $8,000 to $10,000 once you factor in park tickets, hotels, and meals. Even a road trip can run $1,500 to $2,000 as gas, lodging, and fast food prices soar. The U.S. Travel Association reports that 63% of middle-income families canceled or shortened vacations in the last 2 years due to cost. Inflation has turned what used to be a basic family experience into a budget-busting event. Airfare up 35%, hotels up 20%, rental cars up 50%. Everything costs more, except peace of mind. Parents are watching summer come and go with guilt and exhaustion, telling their children maybe next year as next year never comes. Kids grow up without memories of beaches, national parks, or family road trips. The same simple moments that once defined middle-class childhood. It's more than lost leisure, it's lost connection. Time away used to heal burnout and strengthen families. Now, Americans work longer hours, take fewer days off, and are more depressed than ever. The middle class isn't just broke, it's burned out. The saddest truth? Vacations are not a luxury, they're a lifeline. A reminder that life is about more than work and bills. When even rest becomes unaffordable, society collapses under invisible fatigue. America has become a country that never clocks out, and the cost isn't just in dollars, it's in the slow death of joy. Number 2. Savings collapse and the death of retirement. The middle class once believed in tomorrow. You worked, saved, retired, and finally exhaled. That dream has collapsed. Today, the future doesn't look like sunsets and grandkids. It looks like working until your body gives out. Nearly 60% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. Even households earning $100,000 a year struggle to save anything. The typical American has less than $1,000 in savings and no emergency fund. One unexpected bill, a blown tire, a broken tooth, a medical emergency, can trigger a financial crisis. Retirement? It's not even a word most people use anymore. The median 401k balance for ages 55 to 64 is $89,700, barely enough to cover 2 years of modest living. Experts recommend at least $1.2 million to retire comfortably. Who can reach that when rent eats 40% of income and health insurance swallows another 15%? Social Security, the final safety net, faces insolvency by 2034. Pensions have been replaced with risky self-funded accounts. The golden years have turned gray with anxiety. Americans over 65 are now the fastest growing segment of the workforce, not because they want to keep working, but because they can't afford to stop. Meanwhile, costs explode. A single hospital stay can wipe out an entire retirement account. Nursing homes average $108,000 per year, while assisted living costs $64,000. People who worked 40 years are ending their lives in debt. The middle class has been tricked into believing that financial struggle is personal failure, when in truth, it's systemic theft. Wages stagnate while profits skyrocket. The promise of security has been replaced with survival. This isn't retirement anymore, it's economic exile. The future used to be something to look forward to. Now it's something to fear. Number 1. Healthcare. There is no greater cruelty than making people choose between health and survival. Yet that's exactly what the American middle class faces every day. Healthcare in this country isn't about healing anymore. It's about profit. The average annual cost of employer-sponsored health insurance for a family is $22,463. Premiums have risen 63% since 2010, while wages barely moved. Deductibles average $2,825, meaning families pay thousands before insurance even begins to help. Prescription drugs, astronomical. A single vial of insulin can cost $300 to $400 without coverage. An ambulance ride, $1,200. A hospital stay, $15,000 to $20,000 for a few days. Even with insurance, medical debt destroys lives. Over 100 million Americans carry medical debt, and 62% of bankruptcies are tied to health expenses. People skip appointments, ration medications, and delay surgery because they can't afford to get sick. Parents choose between antibiotics and groceries. Seniors split pills in half to make them last. Meanwhile, hospitals post record profits. CEOs at major health insurers take home $15 to $50 million annually, while patients drown in bills. The U.S. spends $4.5 trillion per year on healthcare, more than any nation on Earth, yet ranks 37th in outcomes. The middle class pays more and gets less. Every illness becomes a financial emergency. A broken bone can derail a family budget. A cancer diagnosis can erase decades of savings. Healthcare, the thing that should protect life, now destroys it. In America, getting sick isn't just dangerous, it's unaffordable, and nothing exposes the collapse of the middle class more brutally than that. The truth is devastating. The system isn't broken. It's working exactly as designed, to keep ordinary people too sick, too scared, and too broke to fight back.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today? Tommy Nation Politics.
House, Senator Kennedy.
Mr. Olson, I believe I looked at your resume. You are an elder in the Reformed Presbyterian Church of North America. Is that correct?
I am an ordained elder in the RPCNA. I am not actively serving.
In August of 2015, you gave a sermon at the Second Reformed Presbyterian Church. Do you remember that?
2015, I think that might have been a Sunday school lecture, but I spoke, yes.
During that sermon, you said that marriage was not intended for all people, including, and I'm going to quote your words, our handicapped friends are our persons with physical disabilities that might prevent the robust marriage that we're called to, close quote. Did you say that?
I think I did, Senator, yes.
You believe that folks with handicaps and physical disabilities should not be able to marry?
No, Senator. I was explaining the meaning of Christ's words that some, to use Christ's terms, are eunuchs by birth, and explaining that the meaning of that verse in the context of those who are called to singleness, and that there are various reasons why individuals don't get married.
But what about folks who are handicapped or who have developmental disabilities?
I was using that example as an illustration of why some don't get married, not as a kind of reason why someone shouldn't. It was illustrative of the condition in which some find themselves, but certainly not in any stretch of the imagination suggesting that they couldn't or shouldn't, merely that in some cases they don't.
On July 24, 2022, you gave another sermon at the Columbia Reformed Presbyterian Church. Do you remember that?
The Columbus Reformed Presbyterian Church, yes.
You were speaking about sexuality, is that correct?
I gave 2 sermons at that church, and the main topic of both of those was not human sexuality.
In one of them you said, quote, transgenderism, homosexuality, fornication, and all sorts of sexual perversions was a form of hypocrisy from, quote, your words, shame on the inside. Did you say that?
I don't recall the precise wording, but that sounds
What did you
familiar.
mean by that?
Yeah, Senator, thanks for the opportunity to clarify that. So I was preaching a sermon on a passage in the Old Testament about an Old Testament King Uzziah who was stricken with leprosy.
I don't have a lot of time, Counselor. Tell me what you meant by that.
Sure, that many...
You believe that fornication is a form of sexual perversion?
Senator, my personal views, my religious views, what I was speaking at that time were for the edification of the people that I was preaching to. As a judge sitting here today, my obligation is to apply the rule of law.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Constitution.
my obligation is to try to understand you, because this is a lifetime appointment. Do you believe that fornication, which I assume you mean by that the sex act, is a form of sexual perversion?
Senator, the doctrine of the church that I was at does state that fornication is a sin.
Well, what do you mean by fornication?
Any sexual act outside of the bounds of marriage.
Okay. So you believe premarital sex is a sexual perversion?
Senator, my personal views, as many have said before, I won't comment, but the doctrine of the church that I belong to would...
Is it your doctrine?
I took, as an elder, I took a vow.
Is it your doctrine?
As an elder of the RPCA...
Is it your doctrine?
Senator, my personal views as a judge are not the object of what I would rule upon.
Give me one more minute, please, Mr. Chairman. On August the 23rd, 2015, you spoke in Sunday school, and you said, quote, I'm not saying women can't have careers. That's not what I'm saying. No, strike that. I'm reading the wrong quote. I apologize. In your talks at your Sunday school, you said that God, quote, has called wives to be subject to their husband, end quote, and to, quote, serve the good of your husband and support his calling, close quote. Did you say that?
I gave a couple Sunday school lectures around that time. I don't recall the particular one, but I think I recall saying something along those lines.
What did you mean by that?
So in Christian marriage, as explained by the apostles, I was describing our church's understanding of what Christian marriage ought to look like.
And you believe
Exhaustion is a strategy. This line from a piece Rashida James Sadia wrote at truthout.org has been popping up in my head over and over again since March, especially when I see the news alerts stack up on my phone, one after another after another. I've been reminding myself of that phrase often. as I try to take stock of the damages. The damages the Donald Trump administration in his second term and his allies have been perpetrating against the American people, against marginalized people, against dissent, over the depths of the devastation, the draconian, dystopian implementation, the manufacturing of consent. The manufacturing of consent, though, from the mainstream media. Corporate news headlines meant to obfuscate systems of power and algorithms designed to keep us controlled or doom scrolling certainly don't help. Fortunately, there are ways to resist this kind of engineering burnout. When oppressive systems are used to isolate and exhaust us, carrying this heaviness together becomes an act of defiance. James Sadie wrote, our exhaustion, quote, our exhaustion was meant to isolate us. Instead, it reveals the threads of our common struggles. The reveals of our common struggles, guys. And working to reveal those threads has been the work of truthout.org since its existence. And of course, the Tommy Nation Politics Podcast. New independent progressive media. Free thinking, innovative, totally open-minded. Free enough to cover for you the harms. The harms committed against the marginalized, the American people, the working class, the regular blue-collar, everyday American, from the community that fought to free a daycare teacher abducted by federal immigration agents, to the organizers helping service members refuse illegal orders. We publish on our blogs, writing from the people who have been on the receiving end of the administration's cruelty. And we give examples of scholars and former political prisoners. For example, scholar and former political prisoner Badar Khan Suri handwrote a piece for truthout.org to give to the Texas ICE Detention Center, where he was imprisoned, explaining why he wouldn't back down from his political commitments. Marcos, a trans teen in a red state, told us about how he's resisting conspiracies from right-wing activists and lawmakers bent on giving us the distraction that we need to ignore the real issues that face all of us collectively. We've got no time for bread and circus anymore. This is exhausting. Whenever I feel exhausted this year, reading stories like these helped reinvigorate me. I'm grateful. I'm really grateful to people who told me these stories, especially on my podcast so others can hear, and the live stream every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time. Tommy Nation Politics. Tuesday, 8 p.m. Central Standard Time, we always rage against the machine. And it's pretty radical. They're gonna build a prison. Yeah, you can check that out anywhere pretty much you can find social media, except for the censorious, of course, fascistic TikTok, which has at the head of its leadership a bullying czar named Erica Mendel, who's mostly aligned with the interests of Israel and Israel's propaganda narratives. She's like if Debbie Wasserman Schultz, that antagonist from the Bernie Sanders 2016 campaign, if Debbie Wasserman Schultz got married to Emperor Palpatine and had a baby, and that baby turned out to end up doing a honeypot operation in collaboration with Jeffrey Epstein on the Death Star. And that Death Star's name was the Lolita Express. Yeah, TikTok. All lobbying for a worse world. So many lobbyers for a worse one. It's the reason why it was in the First Amendment, guys. Towards a better, more perfect union. Out of many, one. So, great, guys. It requires us, though, it requires resources. It requires independent sources. It requires the stories of dissent, stories of hard-hitting truth, stories that illustrate that it's possible to make a really lasting, more positive, better country for all.
Today is Tuesday, December 23rd. Here's a tech tidbit Did you know that the first computer virus was created in 1983? It was called the Elk Cloner and was spread via floppy disks. And now, here's the news you need to know today. The U.S. has seized millions of barrels of Venezuelan crude under orders from Donald Trump as part of a blockade meant to pressure Nicolas Maduro. Trump said he's considering options for the oil, including selling it or storing it in U.S. reserves. Venezuela has condemned the move as theft, while China, its main oil buyer, called it a violation of international law. Experts say the U.S. could legally claim the oil through asset forfeiture. The blockade escalates tensions with Venezuela and raises questions about U.S. actions on the global stage. Wall Street analysts are bullish on the AI sector, viewing challenges as signs of growth. High stock valuations? NVIDIA's sales growth makes it a bargain, analysts say. Overbuilt data centers? Caps from local governments create balance? Rising infrastructure costs? Spending now fuels future innovation. OpenAI's record 800 million weekly users show AI demand is real. Experts argue traditional market rules don't apply in this revolution. As one strategist put it, the wall of worry is a good thing to climb. For now, the AI boom shows no signs of slowing. Newly released Epstein files have sparked controversy. They include mentions of Donald Trump and Bill Clinton, along with a subpoena to Mar-a-Lago in 2021. Trump defended Clinton against photos showing him with Epstein, while Clinton criticized the Justice Department, alleging selective transparency. Critics, including Senator Chuck Schumer, have accused the department of withholding key details. Officials say redactions protect victims, but the limited release has fueled debate over accountability. The Epstein Files Transparency Act mandates full disclosure, but questions remain.
Hey guys, this is Tommy with Tommy Nation Politics. How's everyone doing today?
He was surprised by the number of photos of Bill Clinton in the Epstein files, and can you commit to their full release by the end of the year? Some of the victims were protesting that too many of them were redacted.
I know there are a lot of people that are angry about all of the pictures of other people, but I think it's terrible. Look, I like Bill Clinton. I've always gotten along with Bill Clinton. I've been nice to him. He's been nice to me. We've always gotten along. Respect him. I hate to see photos come out of him, but this is what the Democrats, mostly Democrats, and a couple of bad Republicans are asking for. So they give me their photos of me, too. Everybody was friendly with this guy. But no, I don't like the pictures of Bill Clinton being shown. I don't like the pictures of other people being shown. I think it's a terrible thing. I think Bill Clinton's a big boy. He can handle it. But you probably have pictures being exposed of other people that innocently met Jeffrey Epstein years ago, many years ago.
Good evening. Welcome to the special Tuesday edition of Tommy Nation Politics Podcast. Free-thinking, innovative, open-minded, new, independent, progressive media. Catch us at Trovo, Twitch, Rumble, YouTube, anywhere you can find podcasts on Spotify and Apple Plus. We're a free-thinking, innovative, totally open-minded, new, independent, progressive media. Radical, independent thinkers. Revolutionaries. Welcome, guys. Tommy Nation Politics. Welcome to Tommy Nation Politics Podcast, guys. Basically, guys, we're free thinking, and the free thinking is alive. Independent thought is encouraged. And the truth, well, the truth is always up for debate. Tonight, we're stepping into a political landscape that feels less like a democracy and more like a pressure cooker. Foreign crises are colliding with domestic dysfunction, global power. Struggles are reshaping alliances, and here at home, the American people are stuck in the middle. Stuck in the middle with you. Stuck in the middle again, trying to make sense of decisions made far above their pay grades. and decisions
Tonight,
not even
President
made
Trump
for their
issuing an
interests.
urgent warning amid reports Iran is trying to revive its ballistic missile program.
If they are, we're going to have to knock them down.
In June, Israeli forces struck Iranian military bases and missile defenses, and the U.S. dropped massive bombs on key Iranian nuclear facilities. An advisor to Iran's supreme leader now responding, any aggression will receive a strong, immediate response.
Iran may be behaving badly. Usually, where there's smoke, there's fire.
The warning coming as the president hosted Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu at his Mar-a-Lago estate. The U.S. pushing for the start of Phase 2 of the fragile Gaza ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. It would include the withdrawal of more Israeli forces, but only if Hamas lays down its weapons.
They're going to be given a very short period of time to disarm, and we'll see how that works out.
Trump also speaking this morning by phone, again with Russian President Vladimir Putin, as the U.S. pushes for a ceasefire in Ukraine.
It was a very productive talk. I mean, we have a few very thorny issues.
After Russian airstrikes targeted Kyiv this weekend, Putin telling Trump Ukrainian drones tried to attack his residence in northwestern Russia overnight, which Ukraine denies.
This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house.
That tone less optimistic than a day earlier when Trump hosted Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky for peace talks.
I do think we're getting a lot closer, maybe very close.
Zelensky telling reporters overnight the peace plan that's on the table would include 15 years of protections by other countries against Russia. But he's asking Trump to extend those security guarantees for up to 50 years.
Gabe is traveling with the president in South Florida, joining us now. And Gabe, that alleged drone attack on Putin's residence may certainly affect peace talks for that region.
Yes, Hallie, Russia's foreign minister said today that his country's negotiating position will be reconsidered following the incident. President Trump says he expects to meet again with Zelensky and European leaders sometime next month in the U.S., but any agreement seems further off than it was 24 hours ago.
Let's start abroad, because the world isn't waiting for America to get its act together. In the Middle East, the ceasefire remains fragile. Humanitarian conditions are dire. Negotiations are tense, and every day brings a new round of accusations, counter-accusations, and political theater. The world wants stability, but the region is still balancing on a knife's edge. Meanwhile, in the Indo-Pacific, tensions between China, Taiwan, and regional partners continue to simmer. Military maneuvers, airspace confrontations, and diplomatic warnings are becoming routine. The United States is signaling support. Allies are recalibrating their defenses, and the global balance of power is shifting in real time. And in Europe, the conflict involving Russia and Ukraine remains unresolved. Diplomacy is active, but the battlefield hasn't gone quiet. Every negotiation is shadowed by uncertainty, and every ceasefire proposal is met with skepticism. The world is watching, waiting, and hoping the next move isn't the wrong one.
Have right now. Now I still say the same thing, because we're doing.
You have said you will vigorously bomb ISIS. You've said we've got to get rid of ISIS quickly, quickly. How would you get rid of them so quickly? And please give us specifics.
Well, 4 years ago, I said bomb the oil and take the oil. And if we did that, they wouldn't have the wealth they have right now. Now I still say the same thing, because we're doing little pinpricks. We're not even bombing if somebody's driving a truck. They give notice to the person driving the truck, we're going to bomb. If they don't get out of the truck sails away with the oil. We actually have a case where we don't want to bomb the oil because we don't want to pollute the atmosphere. Can you imagine General Douglas MacArthur or General Patton saying we can't bomb because we're going to hurt the atmosphere? You have to knock the hell out of the oil. You have to take the oil, and you also have back channels of banking. You have people that you think are our great allies, our friends in the Middle East, that are paying tremendous amounts of money to ISIS. So we have to stop those circuits. Nobody knows banking better than I do. They have back circuits, back channels. Tremendous amounts of money is coming in through the banking system. So between the oil and the banking, you will dry them up. But it should have been done 4 years ago, not now.
And what would you do in those cities where there are people who we are trying to help, who ISIS is essentially holding hostage?
You have to go in. First of all, when you take away their money, when you take away their wealth, that'll very much weaken, and it will happen fairly fast. They'll last for about a year based on all of the wealth they've accumulated. But when you stop the banking channels and when you stop the oil, and take the oil, not just bomb it, take it. When you do that, it's going to dry up very quickly. They're going to become a very weakened power quickly.
A major flashpoint erupted off the coast of Venezuela this week. U.S. forces carried out a high-risk operation at sea and seized what they described as one of the largest oil tankers ever taken by the United States. Officials say the ship, identified as the Skipper, was carrying Venezuelan crude and had links to Iranian oil in the past. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi released a video showing armed personnel landing on the tanker from helicopters. The clip shows troops sliding down ropes, moving across the deck with guns drawn. U.S. agencies say they worked together on this mission: the FBI, Homeland Security Investigations, the Coast Guard, and the Department of Defense. A senior U.S. military official told American media that helicopters used in the operation took off from the USS Gerald Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier, which was recently moved close to Venezuela. US President Donald Trump confirmed the move himself. He said US forces had boarded a very large crude oil tanker near Venezuela.
As you probably know, we've just seized a tanker on the coast of Venezuela, large tanker, very large. Largest one ever seized, actually. And other things are happening, so you'll be seeing that later, and you'll be talking about that later with some other people.
Explain a little more about this Venezuelan oil tanker and share a little more information about that.
Well, I'll let the people do it, but you see the result, and I guess they probably have released the pictures by now, or pretty soon. You'll discuss that with the appropriate people later on, but no, it was seized for a very good reason.
Officials say there were no casualties and that the seizure took place in international waters. When asked what would happen to the oil, President Trump said, "We keep it, I guess."
We're interested in the seizure of this tanker. What happens to the oil on this ship?
Well, we keep it, I guess.
Where does it go? What port does it go to?
Well, you have to follow the tanker. You know, you're a good newsman, just follow the tanker.
Do you know where
follow,
it was going?
follow it, get a helicopter and follow the tanker.
Is it sure it's going to
But we're going to, I assume we're going to keep the oil.
For years, the tanker had been under US sanctions. Washington says the vessel was part of an illicit network that moved oil for groups the US labels as foreign terrorist organizations, including Hezbollah and Iran's Quds Force. Analysts tracking global shipping detected suspicious movements. They say the Skipper had been spoofing its location, sending out false coordinates before loading more than 1 million barrels of oil. The ship was flying a Guyana flag, but the country later said that the registration was fake. The tanker was believed to be heading first to Cuba and then to buyers in Asia. Caracas reacted within hours, calling the seizure a grave international crime and an act of international piracy. Venezuela said the US is using force to interfere with its natural resources and to tighten economic pressure. Senior Venezuelan leader Cabello compared the US to high seas criminals, even referencing Pirates of the Caribbean. He accused Washington of stealing Venezuelan oil and starting wars around the world. Meanwhile, President Nicolas Maduro, speaking at a rally, sang "Don't worry, be happy" as a message to Americans who don't want conflict.
So thank you very much, and I'll ask Pete to say a few words, and then John. If you have any questions, we'll take them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Well, Mr. President, you're exactly right. There are no fishing poles, no fishermen, and no fishing boats. Just drug dealers and narco-terrorists. And with every strike, we're saving American lives. No other president was willing to do real deterrence. That's exactly what's happening. It's an honor to be here, Mr. President, Mr. Secretary, Secretary Rubio, to talk about what peace through strength really looks like. You can talk about it, or you can invest in it, and you can build it. And that's exactly what President Trump is doing. At the Department of War, we're restoring the warrior ethos. In fact, the President mentioned the NDAA. We put into law merit-based. We put into law getting rid of DEI and political correctness. That's now part of how our military operates, and you've seen it in record recruiting in the spirit of the Department of War. We're rebuilding the military. President Trump did it once. He's doing again with historic investments today in shipbuilding, and we're reestablishing deterrence, whether that's at the border, whether it's through Golden Dome, what happened with Midnight Hammer and what Iran found out, those drug boats, and of course the Houthis opening up the shipping lanes. American strength is back on the world stage. And the announcement of the Golden Fleet, anchored by new battleships, the biggest and most lethal ever, accomplishes all three of those things and marks a generational commitment to American sea power. Across the entire department, we are developing new operational concepts, deploying cutting-edge technologies, and making major investments, including in our Navy. This is happening in all domains, including space, as the President has talked about before anyone else. So it's the highest of domains and the lowest of domains under sea, and especially today in sea power, that always has to be decisive, has been in the history of America, and will continue to be under the leadership of President Trump. We will make sure that anything that flows from our country and with our allies flows freely and uncontested. New and better ships will provide that deterrent today and for generations to come. This new class, these new investments, will be the types of things that for decades, for centuries, the American people will look back and thank President Trump for having the vision and the willingness to invest right now in capabilities we need today, tomorrow, and long into the future. So, Mr. President, thank you for this investment, and I'll hand it over now to the Navy Secretary.
Thank you.
Mr. President, Secretary Hegseth, Secretary Rubio, thank you for being here on a very consequential day. From my very first conversation with President Trump about serving as the Secretary of the Navy, he's talked about the great Iowa-class battleship and why America doesn't build ships anymore with that kind of offensive firepower that takes the fight to the enemy. During my time in the job, I've talked extensively with our combatant commanders, like Admiral Paparo and Admiral Cooper, and our CNO, Admiral Cottle. And what I've learned is that not only is the President's idea a good one, it's something that Navy desperately needs and now has a formal requirement for. The future Trump-class battleship, the USS Defiant, will be the largest, deadliest, and most versatile and best-looking warship anywhere on the world's oceans.
Now back here at home, the political weather is just as stormy. The immigration remains one of the most divisive issues of the country. Newly enforced ICE guidelines, new enforcement measures, new legal challenges, new humanitarian concerns, and still no unified national strategy. The debate is loud, emotional, and deeply personal for millions of families. Economically, the picture is mixed. The job market is coding, inflation pressures linger, and the Federal Reserve is trying to thread a needle between stability and recession risk. Americans are feeling the squeeze. And during the holiday season, Americans at the grocery store, Americans at the gas pump, Americans in the public institutions that used to make our country more of a wealth and consumerist society. But the consumer society is struggling, and their rent and mortgage payments are increasing. And as we head toward this next election cycle, these midterms, this midterm year, the political class is already sharpening its talking points. Every issue from healthcare to national security to courts, to the judicial courts, is being weaponized for the 2026 midterms. The stakes are high. The rhetoric is rising, and the American people are once again caught between complaining competing narratives, or compromises.
If Congress doesn't comply with this, well, the DOJ doesn't comply.
Well, the so-called Department of Justice under the Trump administration needs to comply with the law. And we as Democrats, led by Robert Garcia, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee, are going to continue to make sure that we're holding this administration accountable. These people who are part of the Trump administration, including Donald Trump and J.D. Vance himself, all said for years that they wanted to release the Epstein files. Then they come into office and do the exact opposite. Obstruct and obfuscate, hide stuff from the American people. All we want is full transparency so that the American people can get the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. That's what the Epstein survivors deserve and have demanded. And we're going to make sure that the Department of Justice complies.
So what does this all mean? It means we're living in a moment where every decision, foreign or domestic, is a connected decision. It's a critical decision. And it's interwoven into many different economies and policy decisions that were, let's just put this truthfully, they were not made in the interests of the American people. What happens at the border affects our politics. What happens in Congress affects our credibility on the world stage. What happens in the executive office is a microcosm into the morale and the morality of our principles and our founding values. This is a crossroads moment. It's a moment where leadership matters, accountability matters, and I, for one, think an informed citizenry matter more than ever. Tonight, we're going to break it all down. We're going to separate fact from fiction. We're going to, of course, not bend to the will of the conventional wisdom. We're going to rebel. We're going to question authority, and we're going to don't just watch the mainstream media and go along with a bandwagon mentality, but come to a critical thinking analysis that comes from a non-cognitive bias, that comes from a commitment to independent thought. So hold up. Don't roll up, buckle up. Stay curious. Let's dive into this truth. And let's have conversations, guys. It's the closest thing we can get to American politics today of a more perfect union.